Have you heard about this whole thing with DeepSeek? They're saying they've got this new AI model, DeepSeek R1, and get this. It's supposed to be as smart as OpenAI's O1. Like way less training data, way less effort to make it.
Yeah, it's definitely got people talking, that's for sure. I mean, for the longest time,
right.
Everyone just assumed you needed like mountains and mountains of data to get a really intelligent AI.
It's like, yeah, to train a super athlete, you got to
right.
track every calorie, every workout.
But DeepSeek is kind of saying like, maybe not.
Maybe there's a different way.
Yeah, a better way.
And that's what we're diving into today. So they released this paper, DeepSeek R1, incentivizing reasoning capability in LLMs via reinforcement learning. And we're going to break down exactly how they did it, what it means for AI.
Absolutely.
And the first thing that really jumps out is how DeepSeek went about training this thing.
Yeah.
They just skipped the whole supervised training thing altogether.
Yeah.
And went straight to reinforcement learning. It's almost like just giving a kid a bike and a helmet and saying, go learn to ride.
I see. So instead of like
no training wheels,
holding their hand while they're on the bike.
Nope.
Interesting.
So a typical AI development, you start by feeding the model tons and tons of labeled data.
Yeah.
Telling it basically exactly what everything is. But with reinforcement learning, which everyone calls RL, the AI learns by doing and getting feedback for how it did.
Ah, that makes sense.
So picture it like this. You get DeepSeek R10, this is their early version, tackling a problem. Let's say it's a complex math equation or something.
Okay.
And every time it gets closer to the right answer, it gets a little reward signal, kind of like a virtual pat on the back,
So it's like,
over time, it figures out which steps lead to those rewards and gets better and better at solving these problems.
it starts to learn on its own, basically.
Yeah. And what's crazy is that even without that initial supervised training, that initial hand-holding, DeepSeek R10 started showing some serious reasoning abilities.
Wow.
It's like it developed its own internal logic.
That's pretty amazing.
Just through like trial and error.
Through trial and error.
And feedback. And the results are kind of mind-blowing. They ran it through standardized tests like AIME 2024. It's a challenging math exam.
Oh.
And DeepSeek R10 got a 71% pass rate.
71%.
Which isn't bad for an AI that basically taught itself math, right?
That's incredible, especially without any of that initial, supervised learning.
Exactly. It really challenges this assumption that we talked about earlier that you need these massive data sets to get high-level reasoning in AI.
Totally flips the script.
And then it gets even more interesting. They didn't just stop there. They actually took those raw reasoning skills of DeepSeek R10 and they refined them to create the more user-friendly DeepSeek R1.
Okay, so how'd they go about doing that?
Well, DeepSeek R10, it had its little quirks. Like sometimes its thought process was a bit jumbled, hard to follow, and it would even mix languages, which could be confusing.
Yeah, I can see how that would be a problem.
So they needed to clean that up a little. So for DeepSeek R1, they created this multi-stage training process.
Okay.
And it's like they combined the best of both worlds.
How so?
Well, they gave it a little bit of that structured labeled data, almost like showing it nicely organized notes before a test.
Ah, I see.
And then they unleashed it back into that world of reinforcement learning, but with a more targeted approach.
So they kind of gave it a foundation and then let it run wild?
Exactly. They introduced what they called cold start data.
Cold start data.
Which are basically examples of human-readable reasoning chains.
Interesting.
So this helped improve the AI's readability and gave it a better starting point for its training. And then they refined the reward system to encourage accuracy and logical thinking, like giving the AI a coach to help it focus.
Makes sense.
So they basically taught it to think clearly and daily deeply.
And what happened? What were the results like?
Well, let's just say DeepSeek R1 aced those tests. We're talking scores that rival OpenAI's O1, even on some tasks.
Wow, really? And they did all that with, you said, way less data than usual.
Way less. And that's what's so significant here. They're showing that we can get this cutting-edge AI without relying on massive data sets.
That's a game changer for sure.
It's almost like they found a shortcut, a more efficient way to get to AI intelligence.
It really is groundbreaking.
And there's so much more to uncover about DeepSeek R1.
Yeah, I'm really curious to see what else they've got.
We'll dive deeper into the implications and the potential of this AI after a quick word from our sponsors. So don't go anywhere. Things are about to get even more interesting. So we were talking about how DeepSeek R1 is hitting these incredible results with like a fraction of the data and computing power you'd normally need.
And that's what makes this so exciting, It really opens up the possibilities of what we can do with AI.
Yeah, it's like DeepSeek is saying you don't need to be some big tech company
Right.
with a supercomputer to get in the game.
Exactly. And that brings us to something DeepSeek did that I think is just amazing.
Okay, what's that?
They open sourced distilled versions of DeepSeek R1.
Oh, yeah, I was blown away when I saw this. They're basically just giving it away.
I know.
Sharing their hard work with everyone.
Yeah, it's a huge win for making AI research and development more democratic.
So that means now smaller research groups, universities,
Yeah.
even just like independent developers can get their hands on this technology and start playing with it.
Exactly. Imagine a world where anyone with a good idea
Right.
and the willingness to learn can contribute to AI advancement.
It's a really powerful thought, and it fits so well with, that whole idea that DeepSeek found a more efficient way to reach AI intelligence.
Totally.
So we've talked about accessibility, but what are some other potential impacts of this, this breakthrough?
Well, one area that jumps out is efficiency. If we can get these results, or even better results, with smaller models and less data, that means we can lower the cost of developing and using AI.
Yeah, because right now, training these giant AI models takes a ton of energy, resources.
It's a big problem.
It's a big problem.
And that impacts both the cost of AI and, its impact on the environment.
So if we can figure out how to make AI more efficient,
Yeah.
it'll be more sustainable, and it'll be accessible to way more people.
It's a win-win. And this could also have a big impact on AI research itself.
Oh, how so?
Well, think about it. DeepSeek's approach could really shift research priorities. Instead of just trying to build bigger and bigger models, maybe researchers will start looking at new training methods that are more efficient, that focus on intelligence over just size.
So it's not about how big you can make it anymore.
Right.
It's about how smart you can make it.
Exactly. And that opens up all sorts of possibilities for AI research. It's a whole new frontier.
Okay, so this is all super exciting, but let's be real here for a second.
Okay.
DeepSeek R1's not perfect, all right?
Of course not. I mean, no technology is perfect. DeepSeek R1 is still under development. There's room for improvement.
Yeah, like we said earlier, it still mixes up languages sometimes. And there are some things it could get better at, like more general skills.
Yeah. So, for example, it's not as good as some of the bigger models at things like function calling and multi-turn dialogue.
So it's a really promising approach, but there's definitely still work to do.
Yeah, no doubt.
But I mean, the potential is huge.
It's undeniable. And if DeepSeek can do this with such a small amount of data compared to what's normally used, just imagine what could happen when these techniques are developed further and used at scale.
Right. What happens when we take this and really push it to its limits?
It's a question researchers are going to be thinking about a lot in the coming years. And the answers could completely change the way we interact with technology and even the world around us.
I mean, this DeepSeek R1 thing is a major step forward in the evolution of AI.
It's like we've been building skyscrapers by just stacking bricks on top of each other.
Right.
And then DeepSeek comes along and says, hey, maybe there's a better way to do this.
Maybe we don't need all those bricks.
Right, exactly. They've shown us that there's a path to AI that's more efficient, more intelligent. It's really a whole different way of thinking.
And it could have a massive impact on the future.
No question about it.
Okay, so we've covered a lot of ground today. From how DeepSeek's approach works, the technical stuff, to the potential impacts on AI research, and even just the world in general.
Definitely.
But there's one more thing I want to talk about before we move on.
Okay, I'm listening.
It goes back to the way DeepSeek R1 was trained,
Okay.
specifically with that reinforcement learning.
Oh, right. Like
The whole dog and treat thing we were talking about.
Exactly, yeah. But, if you think about it for a second,
Okay.
we're basically teaching this AI how to think by giving it rewards when it gets closer to an answer.
It's wild when you think about it that way.
And it kind of reminds me of the way humans learn,
You're talking about a connection between AI and how our brains work.
Yeah, I mean, think about it. As kids, we learn by exploring and trying things out, and by getting positive feedback when we do something right.
We get rewarded when we succeed, corrected when we mess up.
Exactly. And over time, we build up our understanding of the world and how to solve problems.
So using reinforcement learning with DeepSeek isn't just some trick. It's actually a reflection of how intelligence might develop.
It's a pretty deep thought, and it raises some big questions about AI and what it could become.
Like, are we just making machines that can copy how humans think? Or are we actually creating a whole new kind of intelligence?
It's something that philosophers and scientists are going to be debating for a long time, I think.
It's a conversation we need to be having as AI keeps getting more advanced.
For sure. The future of AI isn't just about making it better. It's about understanding the ethics of it, how it affects society, all of that.
That brings us to our final thought for today.
All right, shoot.
So we really dug into DeepSeek R1, like how it works, what makes it so different, and even like some bigger questions about how it learns.
Yeah, it really does make you think about what intelligence really is.
Totally. But for this last takeaway, I kind of want to go back to something we talked about before. That main thing that let DeepSeek pull this off. Getting the same smarts as OpenAI's O1, but with so much less data.
Yeah, that's the whole game changer. I mean, for a long time, everyone thought bigger was always better.
More data, more power.
Or everything.
It's like building a rocket ship just to go down the street.
Yeah. And DeepSeek comes along and says, hold on, maybe not. Maybe there's a better way, a smarter way to get there.
A more elegant way, right?
Yeah, exactly. It's like finding a shortcut instead of lugging everything up a mountain.
And that's what's so interesting here. If DeepSeek got these results with such a small amount of data compared to what's usually used, think about what's possible if we tried this on a much larger scale.
Right. It's like, what if we're just starting to see what reinforcement learning can do?
What if we haven't even scratched the surface yet?
Think about better reward systems, tougher challenges, pushing AI further than ever before. It's pretty exciting.
It really makes you wonder what other assumptions we might be making about AI research. What other things we think we know that might turn out to be wrong.
That's what I love about science. Always questioning, always moving forward. And who knows what amazing things we'll discover with this new way of developing AI.
Well, that's about all the time we have for today's deep dive, but we hope this gave you a good look at DeepSeek R1 and what it might mean for the future of AI.
And don't forget, you can find links to that DeepSeek paper and all the other stuff we mentioned in this episode in the show notes.
Thanks for joining us on this journey. Keep learning, keep exploring, and keep diving deep.